Here's what one needs to know in order to start a Rosicrucian order within their own community and to bring the Rosicrucian practice into being in ways which will enable for heightened sense of self-awareness and also an awareness of the external physical reality, which, as we will understand, is found within. And so, to understand the ways of thinking of the Rosicrucians, we have to start at the simplest level of understanding, which is required in order to be a part of the Rosicrucians, which is this idea of spiritualism, which is a practice which leaves you, or essentially brings you, to ascertain the spiritual texts on a daily basis. So you want to explore the spiritual realms through the main spiritual teachers found within human history. And so that could be a variety of different religious or spiritual texts, all of them leading you to the very least to a more profound understanding of your own spirituality. Of course, the Rosicrucians would recommend certain more sacred texts, which would lead you deeper into what they would call a form of enlightenment, or a form of bringing to consciousness, which, as is understood, the order is there to guide you and lead you towards that understanding through the culmination of the spiritual understanding. And so obviously they wouldn't say that any spiritual text would lead you to the same goal or to the same understanding, but precisely that certain spiritual texts have had access to the level of consciousness which we are discussing, or essentially the level of consciousness that is proposed by the Rosicrucian order to be attainable. And so, as discussed earlier, self-awareness comes out of this understanding of spirituality, but paired with spirituality must be logic. And in that sense, we were left with a kind of ontology, or the basic form of understanding of the Rosicrucians lies within a formal understanding of spirituality and logic, which is quite basic if you want to bring it down to the fundamentals of the human experience. And so it does make sense that they would want to start with these two fundamental planes of understanding in order to build up towards a greater sense of participation and self-awareness within the world. And so the next step would be to access imagination, because imagination is what leads to clairvoyance, or the capacity to perceive the future in ways which might not be certain, but to the very least might be projectable. And so imagination is related to the eye, and the senses relate to different levels of self-awareness. And so inspiration is another one, as well as intuition. And if you want an understanding of the interrelationships, intuition is beyond seeing and beyond hearing. It's more of a vague sense of holistic understanding. And this idea of holistic recombination with the Godhead, which is what is unveiled once you climb the planes of being, you realize that what is at the top of this fundamental being that you're trying to achieve and be is in fact nothing other than a deified figure. It is the absolute ideal of being. And so this recombination with that being is what completes the world in an inner sense. because if we are able to recombine with the image of God as one single being, as much as it is unachievable, but truly the awakenedness of the process is what leads you to this recombination towards kind of amassing this knowledge, towards action, towards continuing to exist with that level of awareness in mind. And interesting to know is precisely this idea of the union with the macrocosm. Again, this sense of once you've seen the extent of reality as it is, you've understood that what you are is in fact reality in and of itself, but you're also just a vehicle, a vessel. But that precisely your mind is a frequency. So there's one of the paths of the Rosicrucians, which is the Pythagorean path, which seeks to understand sacredness and geometry and numbers and patterns. And personally, I would say that maybe my life path is Pythagorean in intent, but ultimately the point of this is to say that to them existence can be reduced to a form of momenta, or like a form of energy, and that every being is in fact just kind of like a diapason or a ringing pole which kind of vibrates with other beings. Because ultimately what we understand with the mind is that we are purely just accessing these different states. And so you must imagine that certain states of minds are actually kind of like not amplificatory, and so the sense of natural reason and resonance of your own vessel, of your physical body, is something that is considered, because essentially your body is what enables you to access the mind. And in the Pythagorean path, the mind is the tool by which you access reality. Or at least you participate in it willfully through the mind. It's not the only way you participate, but fundamentally it is the main mechanism of your goal, of the path that you have chosen. And so seeing the body as like a natural frequency kind of antenna, right, is an interesting idea, just in the sense of understanding how you relate to other people around you and to just other forms of masses, right? Which leads to the idea that even inertial objects are alive by way of their influence. Because we're just alive objects which we're able to kind of utilitarize our impact, I guess. No, it's not necessarily just utility, but we've been able to kind of harness the power of physical materiality. And so as compared to inertial objects, or not to or to a greater extent than inertial objects. And so whoever wants to join the Rosicrucian order should consider these different tidbits of information about it, and then come back to me and tell me whether or not they're interested in living the life of a Rosicrucian, or even maybe accepting some of the tenets of Rosicrucianism without necessarily adhering to the order more vehemently.